Margaret Lawn. Whoa, L-A-U-N. L-A-U-N, yes.
Got it, thank you.
And my biggest issue is the environment, and I'm concerned, as you can see, it's actually better today.
Yeah.
The lack of ability for us to talk about climate change, and I'm concerned about the present budget that is lowering our money into science and hardcore science, and the neglect in Congress of scientific evidence. I'm very concerned about that trend and what we're doing for clean air, clean water, you know, for something beyond my lifetime, but maybe my grandkids' lifetime,
Okay.
to have a planet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you aware of any of our efforts with?
I was aware of your vote with the, that Congress wanted to say.
Yeah, that there's a blanket statement.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't like that.
I'm glad you
Second of
voted
all,
against that.
Okay, so we're the only ones in the delegation that's on the Climate Solutions Caucus.
Okay.
I think it's important for us to at least have a dialogue. I think that we can be good stewards of our land, and I think that there's a lot that we can do to promote clean energy. So I just want you to know that we've been involved with the Citizens Climate Lobby. We've heavily involved with our outdoor recreation groups in terms of trying to preserve the quality of life that we have here. I'm answering quickly because I want to make sure I give you information before you leave on our efforts. I'm trying to get the rest of the delegation to join me. I think that it's one thing to kind of ignore the issue, and it's another to at least get in and have a good conversation of what we can do. I'm an avid runner, so yesterday I had to run inside and the day before, so anyway, I get it. You know, it doesn't take rocket science to look outside and say, okay, there's specific things that we can do. Utah legislature they have tried to address the issue, but I think that we need to have a little bit more of a conversation that is a little bit more collaborative on the federal side, and so that's why I have joined the Climate Solutions Caucus. So I want to be able to be involved because we can't really affect any change unless you're. And I think the biggest issue is that there's this false narrative out there that it's one or the other, and I think that's the biggest problem. They were like, it's like you either have energy production at the cost of our land, and I don't think that that's true. I think you can actually do both. We can have really good energy production, really help with the economy, and still be good stewards of the land.
Yeah, the win-lose, just the way we've moved to win-lose.
Yeah, and so there are some people that won't even
look.
look at it because they think that somehow it's going to hurt energy production. I want to make sure that people can turn on the light. I want to make sure that people can have access and that we are competitive on the global market. I think we can do that and still be able to be good stewards of the place that we live. So I'm a mom, I do everything I can to tell my kids, leave it better than you found it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
My name is Charlotte Maloney, and my issue is net neutrality and protecting our First Amendment rights to free speech and standing up for small businesses. And I know your office staff has told me that you think it should be done legislatively, and I'm just asking you to sign on to the CRA to reinstate our net neutrality protections while you're working on.
While it's happening.
While you're working on.
Well, we've done a little bit more than that. Just so you know, we've invited Chairman Pai to come to our state and speak to our tech industry and everyone that's involved in that is involved in that area, just so he can hear it from them. I think it's important for us to gather as much information as possible. We are looking at the CRA. Who's actually leading that letter? Do you know? We have to look. I have to look for it. We get a lot of letters and a lot of legislation, and it's something.
So it's really simple. It's just returning. I mean, it's overturning what the FCC did. So I don't imagine it to be like a 20-page bill. It's very simple. I read it. I just don't remember who did it.
Okay, I need to look for it and see what it says.
I just don't understand. I'm just asking you to please put our protections back while you're working legislatively.
Do you think it should be done legislatively?
I don't care how it's done, I just want it's
Look, I
crucial.
agree with the no throttling, I
it's-
agree with all of that, I mean,
What don't you agree with?
no, I just believe that, I'm sorry, I think that we've consolidated way too much power in the administration, which is why we get this back and forth like this. Which is
Which
why,
I
so
totally
I think
understand.
that's why I always maintain the thought that, you know, these things should be done legislatively, and the administration's job is to sign and execute the laws that we implement in Congress.
I totally understand not wanting the up or down thing, so that's why I'm asking you to sign on to the CRA to keep it as it was while you work on a legislative fix. It just
Okay.
makes sense to me if you're for net neutrality protections.
So I am
But
going
that's what
to,
you do.
the only reason why I'm not committing is because I have not read it.
Okay.
I need to be able to read and make sure that there isn't anything, I'm not going to make a,
Okay.
okay?
Great.
And then here's what we'll do, if you give, Scott, or you give somebody your name, as soon as our office looks at it, we'll let you know,
That would be great.
okay?
Thank you.
Okay,
Hi, my name is Josh Moon.
thank you, Charlotte. Josh, what's your last name?
Moon, M-O-N.
Okay.
I was a reluctant Trump voter, but I kind of felt like he was the lesser of two evils.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of his policies are fantastic, but the impact of that is being mitigated by his style. What do you say to people like me who voted for Trump, but feel like people are running away from his agenda because of his personality?
Okay, the only thing I would say to you is that, first of all, the policies that he actually signs come from Congress, right? The things that are very difficult that I'd like to change are the things that is being done on their own. I've always been an independent voice when it comes to the administration, because it's not my job to follow somebody just because they have an R behind their names. No matter where you are, whether you're on the right end of the perspective or the left end of the perspective, you didn't send me there to stand behind a president. You sent me there to protect the Constitution of the United States and to do everything I can to make sure that Utah's voice is heard in Washington. So one of the things that I've been trying to do, what I would say to you, is our efforts should be spent trying to do everything we can to restore Article 1 back in the Constitution, and try and limit the powers that the White House has. Because no matter who's there, you shouldn't be fearful that your voice and some of those tactics are going to be taken away from you, because we've given all power to the administration. I would also say this, there are some policies, honestly, or policy directions that I don't agree with, and there's some that I agree with. I mentioned before, in terms of some of the positives that we've seen, the fact that he signed the tax reforms into law, I think that's a good thing. We've seen a lot of the benefits of that, and Utah continues to see the benefits of that. In terms of what's happening in trade, I'm really concerned about it. The fact that we're, the fact that he's proposing $12 billion to fix an industry, the agricultural industry, that he put walls up and hurt, that we should be in the business of getting out of the way and allowing people to thrive and to grow, and to give people as many opportunities as possible. We shouldn't put up barriers and then end up funding, the damage that we've done. So I'd like to, one of the frustrations I have is that I don't have a clear tactic as to what's going on. There's no clear strategy with the administration on trade. And I think that that's the problem, because I can't come back to you and say, this is what the administration said. I had a meeting with Larry Kudlow and with Peter Navarro, and I think they disagree with each other, which is really interesting. Peter Navarro was very sure of himself, and I told him that he really needed to listen to the members of Congress, because these are people, and a lot of people, by the way, manufacturing aluminum and steel, that actually voted, right? That actually voted for him, that he's actually hurting. So I guess all in all, when it comes to trade, I wanted to bring this up because this is an issue that's affecting quite a few people. China, we all know, is not a good actor in this, and it's globally known. I would think simply that we would target China and then get people to come along with us, instead of targeting a lot of our allies and coalescing them around China. And so I think that that's a tactic that I need to understand the strategy, because right now, from what I see, I don't get it.
But I'm not sure that can ever happen. 70% of our GDP comes from, spending, and Americans want cheap goods and services.
I agree with that.
So
I'm a
if-
free trader. I
let's-
want cheap goods and
let's-
services.
So,
Right?
I believe that we need to address the issue, but we'll never get you guys to agree to something that may slow down the economy.
What are you talking about? May slow down? the
We need
economy?
to do some things with China. That's gonna increase our goods and services, the cost of our goods and services.
It's-
And it may slow down the GDP because we are attacking some of those trade issues.
I know, but the
Does that
problem
make
is,
sense? With China.
it's not just China, we're going out and literally alienating a lot of our allies on the trade issue. And so
Absolutely.
what I would say is that you focus on the biggest bully on the block, and then say, okay, work on that issue. Because when we're doing this, by the way, I mean, every time there's a tariff, right, the tariff war that continues to bring prices up, we pay for that. I mean, we have to pay the brunt of the cost, which makes people more poor. It doesn't give people the opportunity. When you're bringing in a good into your home and you're spending more money on it, that's less money that you can spend somewhere else. That's a place where you can't, pay for soccer or pay for, different things. And what we're doing on tax reform is actually literally being reversed in some areas, not yet in all, but in so many areas on the trading issue. So I don't know what the strategy is the problem that I have with the administration. I'd like to know what the strategy is, so I can at least either defend it or not. And
Right,
so,
right.
losing
And
it.
yeah,
This top.
I'll give it
I would
to
like
you.
to know what the strategy is, so I think that's the struggle I'm having. Because from what I'm seeing, I don't see it working out for us in the end. Okay? So that was a long answer with a whole lot of different policy behind it, but I would say, don't put your faith in the administration, which is not supposed to be the ones. I would put my faith in your member of Congress and doing everything that they can to make sure that they are not consolidating power in the White House, to restoring your voice. That's what I would say to you.
Hi, sorry for being late. Wasn't sure of the hours, I just got out. Just two things that are concerning me, and I'm sorry if you've already addressed this, so I'm new to this.
No, it's okay.
So I'm sorry if I ask you to repeat anything. The two things I want to address is, hear from you is carbon tax. I hear you're a supporter of the idea of carbon tax or taxing greenhouse gases. Talk a little bit about that. I know that someone, a representative, I believe it was from Pennsylvania, the gentleman, Republican gentleman, I can't remember his name, I think he introduced a bill to sort of do something against an idea of a carbon tax. I'm concerned about global warming. Any thoughts where that is? I happen to believe there's a majority of Americans who do believe in global warming, and whether or not this Congress or the next Congress addresses it or comes around as a bigger issue in 2020, I think it's an issue. The second issue I'm very concerned about is the ballooning federal deficit.
Yeah.
The federal deficit is expected to grow, and as these tax cuts, I was not a supporter of it. I was a supporter of decreasing the corporate tax. I thought that was a great idea, but too much went into that tax package that really gave too much money back to the upper 1%, 2% of the people living in this economy, income earners, and really have hurt. I happen to believe the middle class and lower classes. I'm concerned about where this deficit is going. Where do you see it? Any thoughts of a plan of addressing it? I agree with military spending. I'm all about it. But how are we dealing with this? This is absolutely enormous.
So there are two. Okay, so let me address the first one first of all, which is the carbon tax issue.
Sure.
There was a resolution that was put out by Steve Scalise that was a blanket resolution that said we are going to oppose carbon tax. Well, I'm not going to put up a blanket resolution like that because one of the things that I think that we can do to not just help the environment but help our energy producers is I don't know, and this you may agree or disagree. I'm not sure that the EPA is really doing as much as they possibly can I don't believe that they're the answer to our environmental issues because they've been around and we see these things all the time. So